YouTube, what's up? Bobby C here, and wanted to do a quick show and tell slash quick look at my EDC X9. So this is a Wilson combat gun that I'm going to be talking about today, and it's been the gun that I've primarily carried for the last 2 years. So I've had this thing for a while now, and you know, it's kind of that perfect medium of, you know, what I look for, what I wanted in a carry gun. So I've always been a 1911 guy. However, I was really never able to overcome the argument with folks, especially the plastic gun guys, striker fire guys, of bag capacity and weight. When the EDC X9 came out, it really seemed to serve the cross-functional purpose of, hey, you can have a single action 1911 style trigger and a double stack compact, and not super compact. It's not a subcompact, but you know, smaller than a commander size 1911. It fits all those boxes, or checks all those boxes for me. You get 15 or 18 rounds depending on your magazine. 4-inch gun versus 4 1/4 inch on your standard commander. Weight comes in empty about 29 ounces. Fully loaded 35 ounces or so, and Wilson does an 1.5 inch accuracy guarantee at 25 yards, which is great. Most people can't shoot that, but it doesn't matter. Being able to buy performance and have that comfort of knowing it's you, not the gun, is a big thing for me. The firearm is made with the majority of bulletproof parts, which is also a nice little upgrade. So you're not getting any of those quote unquote MIM parts. And you're gonna have people who say MIM's overrated. Don't worry about it. The MIM's gotten so good it doesn't really matter, and that's completely fine. I'm not gonna get into that argument or into that discussion in this video. What I did want to talk about though is what makes my EDC X9 a little bit different, and why I'm doing the video. So I posted a couple pictures on Instagram as well as Facebook. So you can follow me on Instagram at BobbyBourbon5535, or on Facebook on Bobby C. You can hit me up there. But I did post a handful of pictures of this particular EDC X9, and there's been a ton of people buzzing around asking me for more details and more info, and where I got it, who did the work, all that kind of stuff. So with that said, no changes in form, functionality, or any of that kind of stuff. It's simply just the presentation or look of the firearm that makes it a bit different. So with that said, here is my Wilson Combat EDC X9. This started as a stock EDC X9. It had their Armor Tough on it. It had the traditional EDC X9 here with Wilson Combat billboard across the slide, and it was black with the silver barrel, silver trigger, and it looked just like your standard Wilson EDC X9. With that said, I started seeing folks do battle worn and all these other weird treatments to their firearm, and I thought, hey, you know what? I think that looks somewhat cool. I want to do something a little bit unique on my personal gun, because this is the gun I carry all the time, and I really don't foresee myself selling it. I really didn't give a shit on what I did to it, as long as it still functioned properly, which it does. It's been reliable, just hands down an awesome carry gun. I probably have upwards of 7,000 rounds through this gun at this point in time, and like I said, I've been carrying it nonstop. So shoot the crap out of it and carry it a whole lot. With that said, the way it looks is not actually the way it looks. This is not actual wear on the gun. There is no bare metal on this gun. This is all Cerakote that I personally applicated or laid down. And I'm gonna walk you through the process of how I got my gun to look like this, as well as how I came to deciding where I wanted to wear and how I wanted to do this. So first and foremost, shout out to the Cerakote group on Facebook. There's some really, really talented applicators in that group that gave me a handful of tips that I wasn't aware of, and great. They shared some secrets with me. Definitely appreciate it. I've been laying down Cerakote for a while for a local shop here in Chicagoland. And I'm not a stencil guy. I'm not a battle worn guy. I'm not a theme guy. I'm simply going to spray the gun properly and quote unquote refinish a gun. If you want something like this done or a theme or any of that stuff, trust me, there's plenty of people out there willing to do it. I personally just don't have the time unless it's for a very special project for the shop that I do work out of. So with that said, how did I decide, or how did I come up with making my gun look like it had been carried? Well, first off, I had to think of a name. So this is my version of battle worn. I call it duty worn. So you're going to get sheen like metal. However, there is no metal. This is all paint or Cerakote. I went to my uncle's house, who lives, 3 blocks away, who's retired Chicago PD, taught on the range for 10 years down there. And he's actually the guy who got me into shooting and taught me how to shoot accurately, which, as I mentioned earlier, about 97 or 90% of the country can't do, right? You go to the range and you just see a bunch of nonsense. So shout out to him. Kudos to him for, teaching me proper fundamentals and getting me into shooting sports and just, firearms in general. So awesome. Went down to his house, asked him if he could show me one of the 1911s that he carried on the job. So he said, sure, pulled out a old Colt. It was blued and it was worn and looked very, very, very similar to this finish. I took note of the wear points. I jotted down some notes on where to make it look like it was worn more than other places, and that was that. I came home, took a look at the Wilson, and decided that this billboard on the slide and this X9 here had to go. I didn't want to completely eliminate it. I wanted to rub it down or wear it down to the point where you couldn't see it unless you really had it in the light, and you really can't see it on camera, unfortunately. You can barely see the EDC right there. But it doesn't matter. Took the whole gun apart and started working on the slide. I flat sanded these flats until I got the billboard off the gun. From there, I took it to the shop, put it in my sandblasted it down to, it was essentially bare aluminum and metal. From there, I laid down a very, very light coat of satin aluminum Cerakote. I baked it for, about 15 minutes, flash cured it, took it out. I laid another layer of Cerakote on top of the satin aluminum, which was a hand mix of a color called Disruptive Gray. It's probably my favorite Cerakote color. Again, flash cured this. From there, I took it out and then I sprayed it with a higher gloss graphite black. So two really thin layers and then one standard layer of Cerakote over the top, and then a 15-minute cure. I pulled it out, I let it cool down, and I took some acetone and started rubbing on those areas that I had notated in my notebook, based off of the 1911 that I saw at my uncle's house that he had carried for years on the job. I slowly started wearing through that black with the acetone, and it gave it a patina look, where it almost looks like it is patinaed gray metal. From there, I stopped rubbing with acetone and took some steel wool and started rubbing a little bit further to break through that disruptive gray color that I mixed to get down to the satin aluminum, which is what you have, or what you see that's more silvery or sheeny or shiny even. And I just rubbed until I got to the areas that I saw the most wear on the gun that was actually carried. One thing that rubbing a firearm or rubbing a gun that's been Cerakoted with oil and steel wool, it automatically brightens up the sheen, almost giving it a shine, which is what this has. Once I got the firearm to the consistency and colors that I wanted, I went ahead and put it back in the oven and did a full cure for 2 hours at about 270 degrees. The grips were a little different. I went ahead and sprayed those all black and then took the steel wool to the Wilson emblems or logos, and you can see those look somewhat worn as well. There's really not a whole lot you can do with G10 as far as wearing, at least not that I'm aware of. So those kind of stayed as they were. Once I got it out of the oven, it was full cured. I went ahead and reassembled and then finally went over it one last time with some oil and steel wool to give it more of a shine or more of a sheen and level everything out perfectly with the gun fully reassembled. So that's essentially the way I achieved this look. But at the same time, you know, you can probably achieve this look just by beating the shit out of your gun and not have to pay anyone to do it. With that said, the wear points have maintained perfectly. I have not seen any Cerakote, you know, abrasion issues at all. There's not been any additional wear because I went a little heavier, or I went 3 coats to get the look that I wanted. I would probably say all in all, on the actual areas that you're going to realistically wear on this gun, the depth of the Cerakote is probably 1 mil. So, I mean, it's very thin. And at this point, I'm fairly confident that this is embedded in the substrate of the metal with the gun. That's what Cerakote's supposed to do. Most people have no clue how to actually applicate, and the shit's thick as hell, and then it starts rubbing and it looks like shit, and everyone gets all pissed off and says Cerakote sucks. So if you applicate right and you know what the hell you're doing, just like shooting, the finish works great. Here's kind of how the barrel looks. Did the same thing on the barrel. And guys, I honestly love this gun. The trigger's about 3.5 pounds, maybe a little more, maybe getting closer to 4, if I had to guess. But I will say that the trigger in this gun, although it's about 3.5, you know, almost a little heavier than 3.5 pounds, it's not nearly the trigger that my Reston regulator gun has at 4.3 pounds. Although lighter, it's not nearly as good as the other one. For a handful of reasons, it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to really get into it. For a carry gun, the trigger's just fine. I really like it. I shoot this accurately. You know, I can shoot 90 plus B8s with iron sights at 25 yards with this, so it's not an issue at all in terms of accuracy. You know, shorter sight radius. I wish I could tighten up those groups, but I'm just not that good, I guess, and that's totally fine. So with that said, this is my EDC X9. I wanted to show it to you. I wanted to actually get some videos in lighting versus just pictures to show that paint can essentially almost be made to shine, although I'll just call it sheen, and I'm going to stay away from quote unquote shine. You can give it some luster, which, you know, I've been told in the past that can't be done. Like I said, I gave you some tricks and hints of how I've accomplished it on this one. And I personally think the gun looks pretty freaking sweet, if you want my opinion. It is my gun though, so I really don't care what you guys think. Anyways, guys, get on those B8s, shoot straight, and I will catch you next time. Hopefully you enjoyed. Take care.